Welcome back to It's Not You, It's Your Trauma. I'm Joe Ryan. If you'd like to know more about me, you can go to joeryan.com. If you want to subscribe to all episodes, you can do so at Apple Podcast or Spotify. If you're in need of coaching, you can go to joeryan.com/coaching and book a free 30-minute session to see if I'm a good fit for you. All right, here we go. I'm 80-something episodes into this podcast, which to me is unbelievable that there's that many. I don't know how that happened. But in all of those episodes, I made a conscious effort not to throw the people who raised me under the bus. I never use specific examples. I never call them out. I never throw them under the bus, with any kind of detail. Everything has been really general and generic terms, and that isn't always easy to accomplish, especially when I'm in the thick of it and just go to that place inside where it all just starts to come out. But I've been thinking a lot about me working my way back to my family and how incredible it has been. You really don't know how well you're doing in this work until you go back to the places that you felt the worst with the people around you. And to be able to be around them and not be uncomfortable, not worrying about their feelings, not caretaking, it's kind of incredible. And it's that mirror, we tend to avoid the situations because we can't handle what's going on in our bodies. We regress to that frightened little child who had to self-abandon to take care of others, to never allow them to have bad feelings, to never have them look at us in negative ways because it was just too painful as a child. And I'm starting to build a new relationship with my mother, which is remarkable. It's miraculous. I never envisioned getting back to this place, or not even back to this place, but to a place that I wanted to be respected and considered in a way that I never was. And you can't change people. You have to change yourself, and then people have a choice whether they will change if they want you in their life or not. So much of this has been trying to people please and to get them to a place where they love us the way we feel like we need to be loved, even if we're not sure exactly what that is. We just know emotionally the feelings that we're trying to get to, even if we can't articulate it. And the goal is to get yourself there without them. I'm saying this a lot lately, but we have to get to the place where their opinion of us no longer matters. And if they are unhappy with us, we are still happy with ourselves. And that takes a shitload of work. It is hard. I have a client that just emailed me. I guess that's what prompted this. And she's moving back closer to her mother. And she's not in a good place about it because of how all of the childhood stuff is starting to come up. And she wants to say what she wants to say to her mother. And as she's thinking about saying it, and all the words, there's a lot of anger in it. And there's a lot of fear and anxiety coming up because she has to face what she didn't face as a child, what she couldn't face as a child, which was setting boundaries and allowing herself to have the anger. And it's the deep desire to have the people who raise us love us, that we want them to be proud of us. We want them to feel good about us. We no longer want them to, run us over. We don't want to allow people to step all over our boundaries. But what happens in our body is that emotional reaction takes over. And the fear and the anxiety and the hurt and the anger and the emotional confusion of the conflict. We're conflicted. We hate these people on some level, but we need their approval for us to move forward in life. And we're never going to get the approval that we need. They're never going to say, listen, I'm going to start taking responsibility for my own feelings. I'm not going to need you to caretake. I'm not going to need you to show up for me. I'm not going to need you to self-abandon and give up who you are to make me feel okay about myself, because I know that that's what you've always needed and I couldn't give it to you because I didn't learn how to give it to myself and nobody gave it to me. So I'm just doing to you what was done to me a little less harsh. You know, and it makes me relate to the relationship that I'm building with my mother now. It's like, where did it all go wrong? Like, where was the big turn? When I was younger, I mean really young, my mother and I were like a team. We were definitely enmeshed. It was definitely codependent. It was definitely toxic. It was definitely damaging. But there was a oneness when you felt like her champion. And then one day, and this is coming back to what I set up in front on the start of this, is that, you know, I don't give specific examples because I don't feel it's right to air their shit out publicly. Like, they didn't ask for me to be talking about this shit, and I know that they don't like it, and I'm sure some of my family has peeked in at some point and listened, and they're horrified because they feel like I blame them for everything. And me leaving them was so that I didn't blame them anymore. Because when you blame, you stay a victim. And I was tired of being a victim. So I had to leave to heal myself so that I can come back without anger, resentment, hate, disappointment, hurt, and pain. And I just, there's no blame left. There's nobody left to blame because I've accepted the responsibility for the things and the choices I've made, and I've understood where they came from and who they are, and I don't need them anymore. I would like to have relationships, but I don't need it. And it's a great feeling, and it's a great place to be when you no longer want their approval. I mean, I would want it. It would be great, but I don't need it, and it's not like my heroin. I'm not holding on to the connection and trying to steer it in a way that makes me feel good. I now have to be responsible for my own feelings. And I started to really think about where the turn with my mother went, because it was her and I against the world. And there was a part of me that enjoyed it. And it's interesting when I start to think about my relationships, my romantic relationships throughout my life, I was trying to be what I was from my mother when I was young, where there was that connection and that oneness, and it was the two of us against the world, and it all felt safe. I'm just trying to recreate childhood through female relationships. And that's a lot of responsibility to put on a woman, and there's a lot of room for being disappointed. That you need them to show up, and you need the relationship to be what it was when you were a child before it went wrong. And I was able to find that moment where it all turned. You know, it was me and my mother kind of against my father for a while, which put me in conflict. Because as a man, you want a certain connection with your father. When your mother and father do not get along and your mother takes you hostage and tries to get your father to change to make the house more peaceful, you know, that becomes your job. And when the guy did make a change in his life, and he made a drastic change, which changed the entire dynamic of the household, because it was no longer me and my mother getting my father to change to keep the peace. It became my mother and father against me. You see, she needed to attach to somebody to feel safe. And when she didn't feel safe with him, she felt safe with me. And when he made the change and he started to feel safe with him, the two of them connected on a level, and I was the odd man out. And there's my abandonment issues. But when that turn was made and I felt like I was kicked to the curb, that's where all of my anger really started to show up with her. And then I became this spiteful prick. Because I was angry and I had no place to resolve it because I didn't even understand it. Like, it took me now. I'm getting close to collecting Social Security. It took me this long to figure this shit out because it was so deep and it was such a hard, painful wound where you self-abandoned, you gave everything up for this person, and then all of a sudden one day they make a turn and they leave you. That was the exact model of every relationship. I show up for you in every single possible way so that you never have an uncomfortable feeling, that I'm constantly clearing the path ahead of you. And I'm anticipating and predicting what you may need going forward. And in the process, I have no needs, and I give up friendships, and I give up social activities, and I give up hobbies because I need to show up for you in every way humanly possible so that you don't leave, because I can't handle that childhood abandonment anymore. And I'm fucking single now, so it doesn't work. It doesn't work showing up for people and self-abandon, because when you give yourself up and you show up for somebody in every way humanly possible and you give up everything yourself, when they leave, you're left with nothing again. And that was childhood. That was growing up. That's the way I was parented. That's the way I was raised. So I'm going to do that out in the rest of the world. Every job, every friendship, every relationship, I show up 1,000%. And then when you leave me, I go into this massive depression that can last 6, 12, 18 months, 2 years, where I'm just absolutely miserable because that abandonment wound is so deep and so painful, and I couldn't understand it. And if I didn't get back with my mother and I didn't start working through this stuff and I could actually see where the turns were and how well I'm doing and how far I've come, my relationships with women going forward are going to be better, because I'm going to learn how not to self-abandon, because it doesn't fucking work. So we have to start seeing where the origin of the pain and the hurt and the issues are. And they're far back and they're deep, and we didn't understand it when it happened, because it happened before logical thought. It happened before reasoning. It happened before emotional intelligence. So all of this shit happened before we knew it. And we can't understand it because we have to go back into the feelings. And we have to understand where it was. I become a spiteful motherfucker when you don't show up for me in the ways that I expect you to. And that's not fair to other people. And it's not fair to me to self-abandon to show up. So I know where the turn was. It was when she left me for him. And I've been carrying that wound, and I've been carrying that anger and that defensiveness, that it's impossible to be open because I'm protecting this place. And the way I adapted was becoming a people pleaser and caring for and showing up for. And that was a way to protect. It didn't work, but I didn't know it. And once you know it, you can change it. So you have to start getting into the feelings. And I love the fact that this client just wrote me this email, and she sent me what she was going to send her parent. And as I'm reading it, I'm starting to relive the pain of leaving them and disappointing them and not showing up for them and not taking care of them emotionally. That was one of the most painful parts of that journey, was to stop taking care of them and taking care of myself. I did the same thing. I wrote my parents a letter that took me 9 months to write, without blame, and just telling them that I needed to work on myself. Like, it took me that long, 9 months of rewriting this and reworking it, rewording it in a way that they would receive it and not be hurt and angry, and just letting them know that I had to take care of myself because shit that happened growing up, I don't understand, and I can't figure it out if I'm with you. So I need to leave because I can't be with you and not take care of your feelings because I'm fucking addicted to it. So I needed abstinence. I needed to separate from it. I needed to be far away from it, and you need to figure out your own fucking feelings in this, and you need to take your own accountability. And I'm sorry that I can't show up for you in the ways that I did, but it's fucking killing me. I am slowly being soul murdered. It's like cancer of the fucking soul. I can't do it anymore. I am dying emotionally and soulfully. So for me to find out who I am and to give myself a life, I have to leave you. And I have to figure me out. So you have to get in there and you have to start setting boundaries. And when you set a boundary, you are going to be uncomfortable as fuck. And you have to deal with those feelings. You have to learn how to self-soothe. Because all our self-soothing came from pleasing them. I'm uncomfortable in my body because you are not happy with me. So I need to soothe you and make you happy with me again so I don't have to deal with the feelings that are going on inside my body. And as an adult, for you to heal, you're going to have to set boundaries and limits with the people who raised you. And then you have to deal with the vulnerability hangover of the emotional unrest within your body. And you have to figure out your process for self-soothing. And it can't be sex, drugs, and alcohol or work or obsession. You have a war going on inside of you. I need to set this boundary, but with the thought of setting this boundary, I become absolutely miserable emotionally because I feel obligated to take care of you. There's the war. There's the battle. You're never going to learn how to deal with the feelings and emotions that you need to tame if you don't set boundaries. So the way the process works is you first slowly start to visualize what it would feel like to set a boundary. And then you feel what comes up in your body. And you explore those feelings. You don't mood alter. You don't take yourself out of those feelings. You sit in them for as long as you can and you try to process it. And you keep doing this until you get to yourself with a place within you where you're going to be okay setting the boundary, as okay as you can be. It's practice. You never learned how to do this, and nobody ever taught you. So you're not going to be good at it. Just the thought of setting a boundary right now, I want you to take a moment and think about setting a boundary with somebody who keeps walking all over you. And feel what that feels like in your body. Feel where the discomfort is within you. Feel where the anxiety, fear, and pain is. And focus on that. Stay out of your head and stay in the feelings because they will lead you to answers. This is the whole process of the healing. And because once you start to deal with the feelings, with the thought of setting a boundary, you're going to have to make yourself comfortable with the visualization. And then you're actually at some point going to have to do it. And if you practice alone with visualization, you will start to get comfortable with the uncomfortable feelings. And the goal is to actually set the boundary with the person. And you're going to have to deal with the feelings even more. But this is what it is. Learning how to disappoint them. Learning how not to show up for them. You have to wean off the external validation that you need from them. You have to deprogram yourself. It's an exhausting process. But, we adapt, we avoid, we work around, we put distance from, we go into delusion, denial, disassociation. How's that working out? You could move to fucking Asia and you're still going to be dealing with the feelings of avoidance. It doesn't matter where you live or how far you are away from a parent or if they passed away or not. The feelings are still in you. They will stay in you until you learn how to process them and understand them. I'm not allowed to be angry. So I become spiteful, I withdraw, I become passive-aggressive, I have these snarky remarks. I don't face the feelings. I don't confront the person who is shitting on me. I accept it and I find these ways to adapt so that I don't have to absorb the feelings. Getting in there and doing the work. Write your parent an angry letter. Tell them what it is that hurts you. Get it out on paper. You don't have to send it to them. Just fucking do it so that you can figure out where the fuck you're angry and why. Because until it comes out of you, it's just this endless loop of hurt, pain, and shame. It has to get out of you. For me, it was writing. I journaled forever. to understand why I felt so useless and so fucked up and so unlovable. Like, I needed to understand it. I couldn't think my way out of it, so I started to write about it. And I probably have about 75 pounds of notebooks with just spewing shit out on paper. There's something cathartic about getting it out of you. And after a while, the pen didn't work, and therefore I opened up the microphone. And this was never supposed to be heard by anybody. This was just another way for me to journal, to get my shit out of you. I just had an audience now because I put it out in the world. And that's even fucking painful. Do you know how shameful it is to know that all these episodes are out of me bitching, moaning, and complaining and going to these dark, ugly places inside of me? That's how I heal my shame. I put it out in the world and then I make myself okay with it. You have to start thinking about setting boundaries and making yourself okay with it to deal with the shame and the pain of it. And then hopefully you get the courage and the bravery enough to send it or to set the boundary verbally. But you got to start somewhere. So start visualizing, start writing it out, start getting it out of you. Like, you got to take action in recovery. You can't just listen to me or whoever the fuck else you're listening to. You can't read whoever you're reading and think it's going to change because you're not getting into the feelings and the emotions. You're intellectualizing it. You're trying to think your way out of it. That shit don't work. My brain is fucking completely obsessive. If I could have figured out a way to think myself out of this, I would. You feel your way through it. But you got to start facing the internal dialogue. You got to start facing the internal feelings. You're never going to heal through somebody else, through codependency, through relationships, through parents, through jobs. You're not going to get it through performance. You're going to get it through feeling the pain and the hurt and grieving it out of you. Emotions, energy stored in your body. It's heavy. You're fucking exhausted from surviving. You're exhausted from staying away from the feelings. You're exhausted from people pleasing. You're exhausted from pretending. You're fucking miserable because you're not living your life. You're living a life to not piss anybody off so that they give you positive mirroring faces so that you can feel better about yourself. You're self-abandoning and becoming something you're not to get feelings that you need from others. But you got to get those feelings from yourself. You got to start feeling good about yourself by standing up for yourself, and that starts with setting boundaries. And you can't just set the boundaries because it's overwhelming. You have to start thinking about putting yourself in these places to start understanding what's going on in your body before you do it. I mean, how many times do you have plans and you're afraid to go through with the plans because emotionally you're overwhelmed? I got to take a shower. I got to get dressed. I got to get in the car. I have to drive there. What's it going to be like? What mood am I going to be in? Do I have enough energy to show up and people please? Do I have enough energy to caretake for people emotion? Am I going to be able to regulate myself with all of this shit going on inside my body? Man, the thought of making plans years ago for me, a month before I had to go to a concert, I would just start completely working through every step of the process. Getting on the train, getting off at Penn Station, going up to Madison Square Garden, the crowds. How do I protect myself? I'm not allowed to have my anger and boundaries. Am I going to be okay? I had to work this shit through a month in advance. Because when I started to think about it, the feelings would come up. So you have to start preparing to live by putting yourself visually and emotionally in that place when you're alone in your room and dealing with the feelings. Do that with setting boundaries. Do that with getting angry with somebody. Play the scenario out in your head. But don't stay in your head. Pay attention to the feelings. I mean, this is the way we have to start processing what's going on inside of us. I could not have sent that letter to my parents immediately because I wasn't emotionally ready. It took 9 months of preparation to send the fucking letter. 9 months of processing, rereading it, making myself okay with it. Making myself okay with the reaction that I may get. I didn't think they were going to fucking ignore me for almost a year before I heard anything back from them. But that was them processing on their end. I mean, the hope was they would have opened their arms up and said, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, I didn't know you felt this way. How could we make this right?" But they fucking ignored me for almost a year. And for a year, I'm waiting for the day for the hammer to come down, for them to slam me for it, and they never did. I got some generic response, "We got your letter, thank you," or some bullshit, because they didn't know how to deal with it. They were in their own anxiety, fear, and hurt. And that's their fucking problem. But the point is, you have to start putting yourself in these feelings and do whatever you need to. And if it's too much, tap out. And go fucking disassociate. Go numb out, but keep coming back to it. This is all about you resolving it within your body. And nobody can do that for you. You can find a good therapist or a good coach to work you through it, but you can't go to your source figures and have them work it through with you, because if they're not capable. If they would have did it by now. And they're so in delusion and denial themselves that they can't understand why you're angry. So when you understand why you're angry and you can express to them the bottom line, the truth of the anger, and coming from an emotionally intelligent place instead of this hurt child place, maybe they have the possibility to understand and hear it. But you have to do the work if you want to heal. And if you're blaming, you're a victim. You're stuck. So you have to get to the point where you have a level of acceptance of what happened to you, and blame starts to go away, and you realize that you, and only you, are the person that can heal you. You, not them. It was never them. It will never be them. It is you and you only, because you are the ones who know what is going on in your body. And you have to figure out how to make peace with the war that is happening inside you. Honoring myself versus honoring them and protecting them. Everything that you're giving them and you've been giving them, and everything that you've been looking for them for, is all within you. You have the power. You have the capability to fucking heal yourself. But you're looking in the wrong places. It's an addiction. You are addicted to them. Healing you. Seeing worth and value in you. You have to wean off the addiction and start feeling yourself, healing yourself, feeling your own wounds. Yeah, I know you're angry, you're pissed off, and you want somebody to do the fucking work that should have been done for you. That is over. That has passed. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna be healed by the people you want to be healed. So you need to start trusting yourself and relying on yourself. Learning how to listen to your gut, to your heart, to your soul, and undo the fucking childhood programming. You didn't deserve it. This is a shitty life. You need to make it better. You're the only one that can do it. Start taking action. Stop living in your head and start getting into your heart. And realizing that they were sick, damaged, broken, emotional children who had no business having kids of their own because they couldn't take care of themselves. And their lack of self-worth, they got filled through you, their child, because that's what was done to them. They did not know any better, and you are carrying generations of hurt and pain and shame, and it is not your responsibility to carry it anymore, and you need to figure out how to process it out of you. And I'm giving you a lot of the answers, but you can't just listen. You have to do the fucking work. It is hard. It is painful. It is lonely. It is difficult. It is isolating. It is all the things that you felt in childhood you have to now relive so that you could realize that there is nothing fucking wrong with you. That what happened to you shouldn't have happened. That it wasn't your fault and you are not responsible for what happened, but you are responsible to fix your life the way you want to live. And everybody else can go fuck themselves. You get to live the life that you want the way you want. You just have to find the courage to get in there and fucking do it.
Thanks for listening. You can contact me at joeryan.com. Follow me on Instagram at joeryan. And if you want, you can leave us a review on iTunes. That'd be great. All right, take care.